we're cutting bottom planks today, and so the first step was just to kind of clean them up a little bit. There was a lot of bits there's still some here which won't impact it. The cotton and waxes, different things have been put in the seams over the years. Scraped a little of the muck off the inside of the plank so that I'm not just filthifying my plank. That's the word of the day, filthifying. And so what I've done is I've got a few cut over here, the ones forward, the first, second plank, and then this is number 2. This would be 2 starboard. And so I gently rolled that plank into the new wood. I've got a stock of wood that's plane to thickness. And so then I'm going to trace it out, and I'm going to cut them out with a circular saw. And so we'll get going. So I'm going to trace it. If I have missing parts, often on a plywood Lyman, you'll have places where a chunk has come out, you know, when the screw didn't want to cooperate. I want to make sure there's no debris that would distort that line. If I didn't have the plank, I'd have to spile, which is how a new build would be. But this is faster. On the back side, I'm going to leave about 1 inch. If my stem and keel, any of that rabbet where these planks are going into, if I'm just an 1/8 inch forward, then I would be an 1/8 inch missing on the back side. So this gives me a little extra to work with. Take my clamps off. And you'll see when I take this off, just how much bend there is in this plank. So there. You can see just how much bent that is. If I set it this way, it really shows it. So that's a cut plank. I'm just a hair thick, so I'll end up running them through the drum sander and get some of this planer chatter off. And then if I'm high on, you know, a little fat on any of these, I can take a little block plane and smooth them up, a little piece of sandpaper. I'll have to put a little bevel to this when I fit it to the boat. We'll fit that right to it. Then they will get painted before they go in the boat. As you see, Lyman didn't take the time to do much of that. So a little overview of what's been going on here. The bottom is now planked, and so all of these are new. Steam bent on the last couple. The other ones I was able to just bend them around with clamps and get the screws in. And then at the front, the screws are usually shallow so that you don't crack the planking. Once the caulk is dry, you can pull them back out, put them deeper. And then I've come in and faired this with little grinders and sanders. I'm not quite done. There'll be a little bit more fairing when I get the putty cleaned up and everything, but the bottom's first round of fairing is done. We still have some caulking to do down there, but that's coming. Doing planks in the back now. We've got the shear plank on the other side that was rotten, steamed in. That'll get fastened in permanently soon. This is the new aluminum tank. The old one was a galvanized tank. Galvanized tanks typically do last 40 to 50 years. But the Achilles heel on a galvanized tank is the inner galvanizing starts to turn to fine sand and goes into your carburetor and clogs it up. Fuel filters help with that, but aluminum tanks are now standard in the industry. This is set up for a couple of pickups, and there's no bottom drain plug, which is not Coast Guard. All the old tanks had bottom drain plugs. So that's the other reason to build a new tank. So I'm in the boat that's pretty closely gutted down to just a bare hull. If I was running the boat, I would be sitting here with the steering wheel there. So all the deck beams, this carlin is just temporarily clamped in to support the shear plank as we steamed it in. The other one is out and being repaired. All the deck beams are off, and they all had rot in the ends or where they leaked around the hatch, so they're all new. They've been cut. The plywood deck is off, and then the solid deck is off. And then when that deck came back, there was a dash that was built up a little higher that the windows sat on. So lots of pieces here have been taken off the boat. Many have been already refabbed, the new dash, because it was rotten in the corners. And it's a pretty good piece of wood that comes across and then is cut out for the hatchway and then back, and there's glove boxes under there. Most of those parts have been taken apart, varnished, repaired, made new, all of the above, new fasteners. So a lot of work's been done, and then when the deck was off, that was the time to come in and clean and paint. So all of this has had a couple of coats of gray, except where we have some more repairs going on. So in some cases, we're 75 to 100% new wood. Not so much with the hull, but a lot of the superstructure, you know, deck and cabin sides and hardtop, that's all going to be new. I mean, almost completely all new wood. Okay, so I'm standing in almost the hatch of the hardtop. That would be here, which because the rain had rot in it, but the whole hardtop has rot. Or by the time we strip it and refinish it, we're gonna make a whole new hardtop. It's just gonna be faster and better. Originally, it was varnished on the underside, and then it's all been painted. So to get that out of the grain, plywood is bad. There's several hundred nails that had to be pulled to get the skin off. And then all of this is built. All of these deck beams are gonna get replaced. And there again, they come out like that, they'll be steamed in. The back is done in a series of curved boards that make that rounded. And these could possibly be saved, but more or less everything is going to be new. There's rot in these bottom sills. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a jig that we can bend the front and back bills on that jig and clamp them down, and then the sawed parts will go on, and then these carlins, the deck carlins, then the deck beams. So we have to build a jig to maintain shape and rebuild this.
This is the port forward engine box side, which is removable so that you can access the forward side of the engine to change belts or do maintenance up there. We rebuilt this one with mostly original parts. The only part we really replaced on this one is the sound insulation itself, which is the closest thing we could find to the original material. The paneling itself is clinch nailed through the sound insulation with multiple nails per each one, and then nails around the entire perimeter, as well as the uprights are nailed through the insulation. But these have little cleats on the bottom, or hooks that would lock into the framing, and you have these little twist locks at the top so that it's easily undoable. We built these very rudimentary jigs to keep everything in the exact same spot so that we could ensure the fitment was the best, or close enough to what they had, without causing any rework down the road. Most of this jig is disassembled, but there is no play in it at all. We decided to keep these in the jig so that we could know which panel went where, and it was a very nice place to keep them so that we could continue adding coats of varnish over top of the sides. So with this being a pre-World War II model, the construction is much more complicated than it would have been later on in the post-war era, which is the most relatable era to most people when they think of Lyman. This individual panel, it has 11 parts, not counting the nails, where the post-war model would have been one sheet of plywood with the framing glued onto it before being installed. So this is a much more complicated form of construction than what we're familiar with.
These are the aft carlins. So this would be inside the boat, the ribs would be here. So this is part of the deck superstructure, and these are cut out for the aft deck beams for the back deck. These we're making new. We did manage to save a deck beam by repairing the one end. And it's nice because it has some good location holes. I think that one even has the hull number. And these are the corners up the side of the boat and the transom, and actually this way. These holes for vents were added. They're not original. So the metal cowl's not original. So that was another reason to make new ones. So that was, and we glued these up so that we don't have the cracking that they have. So this is all the old and new deck beams for the front deck, particularly around the hatch. They were very bad, but the ends on a lot of them were bad. So we've made all new. I don't think we repaired any. I think we just made all new. And then underneath them, there's some boards that support them. These were okay. They'll just get cleaned up and painted. This is the starboard carlin. So this is going up into the front deck area. And I mean, you can see what a massive curve that has. And yeah, we could steam a new one in, but all of these are nicely cut, and it tells us exactly where those beams go. And these are really not rotten. They'd seen some water. This is where a screw just went in and did that. So we said, hey, let's just repair this, because this was the area in the deck. They have this little triangle and it leaked water down in here. So we routed out and glued that in. And then we're gonna do another repair there and get the rod out of it. And then everything is going to line up exactly where it's supposed to be.
I can't imagine trying to make that piece again.
Well, I'd have to measure, and everything would be, you know, this one would be off by 10 thousandths and that one might be forward by 20 thousandths. And you can build the boat that way for sure, but it helps if everything really is exactly where it was. And the other one we think is good too, and we'll need a repair in here. Trying to save as much as we can if we think it's going to go the distance. Mm-hmm. And you can see here where they had bolted with steel, and you can see where it's rusted. We'll put back with bronze or stainless.